Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon Live. Because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning and in the midst of COVID?
Working for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put the community first.
Hi, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. How you ladies doing?
Hi.
I'm great.
I'm hanging in there. Oh well, you know we got a very special guest coming on joining us tonight, so we want to hurry up and get to her. But before we get to her, I just want to acknowledge these little kids that I went out to the school. I was a judge. They had to do research on a woman, and they would pretending that they was that person. So my first little one, she was Josephine Baker.
She's so cute.
Her name was Jade Allen. I thought she was so adorable. Josephine Baker. They had a dress just like Josephine Baker and everything. She was so awesome, that little girl. So I wanted to give shout outs to her. And my next three, they did the research on Harriet Tubman, Aspen, Durant, Nazareth, Sutherland, and Hunter Peterson. You should have heard them reading the story about Harriet Tubman. It was like unbelievable. You would think they was like third grade, fourth graders. These are kindergarten kids. They was awesome. So I want to just give a shout out to the principal there, Salima Marlborough at PS 329. They did an awesome job. The whole group did, but these two just stood out to me. I just had to say something about them. And I also want to thank Elder Gloria Gant from Better Magazine. I was received the award for Beacon of Light to Women, and I want to thank her and her staff. I think Dr. Vanessa, you was on the staff too, right? So
Yes,
we do my little speech, and and that was Sean Bell's mother, Sean Bell, that was killed years ago, by the police that was getting married the next day.
Yes.
So that was his mother there and everything. So the affair was just wonderful, was awesome, and I thank them so much for finding me worthy of that award. So I'm going to keep shining my light wherever I can.
Yes, congrats on the award.
So let's get to our special guest tonight. And who's that?
Absolutely. Our special guest tonight is Assemblywoman Latrice Walker of District 55. As a graduate of the Pace University School of Law, Walker built a strong record of advocacy that eventually led her to politics. She represented people who were targeted by the NYPD's use of unconstitutional police tactics known as stop and frisk. Walker battled in court on behalf of tenants, including NYCHA residents who were on the brink of eviction, as she worked closely with advocates and elected officials to preserve affordable housing. Let's welcome my guest tonight, Assemblywoman Latrice M. Walker.
Well, hello there.
Hi. Thank you for having me again.
Well, we got to have the baddest Assemblywoman out of Brownsville as many times as we can get her, because we know you're so busy doing great things, and we appreciate everything that you do and everything. And right now the city's in a crisis. And as I was saying, my concern right now is these people that was in the shelters. And, I'm just kind of upset because all the people that have been in the shelters for years and stuff, they can't seem to get out. And now all of a sudden we got the migrant situation, and now they're getting everything that the people in the shelter wasn't getting. And I just wanted to know, what is going to happen with this situation? Will they ever be able to get out of the shelter?
Well, one of the things that, we know that New York City is in a housing crisis. And there are a lot of people who are looking for housing and they can't afford it. And a lot of times we go to homeless shelters, but, our homeless are not just in homeless shelters. Sometimes they're living 2 and 3 families in one apartment, and many of our NYCHA developments and other homes all across the city of New York. And so one of the things that we were able to do was to change the laws around 421A. And we also included a 485B, which is usually kind of goes towards building of more higher end luxury housing, which also includes a number of set asides for people who are more around the low income spectrum, uh, people who live in New York City. In addition to that, based on some of the requests that came in from the city, we've changed FAR, which means that many of our homeowners now are able to build higher, on whether it's on their existing properties or on different property, in order to be able to get more housing to be able to be built. And then we also strengthen our housing laws, in order to prevent many landlords from being able to just put people out into the street for any reason or no reason at all, and without being able to use, have the opportunity to offer them a new lease. We were watching as gentrification was happening in our city, and people were saying, "Oh, I can get now, $3,000 for this apartment that I used to be able to get $1,000 for. So I'm gonna increase the rent by $2,000." But you can't take advantage of people like that anymore, because you feel like some people are undesirable. And so there are a number of changes that we've done, in order to address the issue of people just not even going into homeless shelters across the city to begin with. There are also, of course, Housing Connect and other buildings that are being built here in our community. We are building a development called The Rise, which is a development for people who are formerly incarcerated. A lot of times they're being told, no, they can't move back in here. They can't go here. They can't come in this block. And so we're building new units of affordable housing there. And quite frankly, really throughout the 55th Assembly District, which I'm honored to represent.
Great. You mentioned something very interesting, because there is a rise of gentrification in different communities, but sometimes with these gentrification, they rezone connecting communities to bring up the AMI. So sometimes what may be affordable at one point, a statute with community, is no longer really affordable. And sometimes these gentrifications, they will remove, they will bring 50,000 people into the community just to remove 25,000. And some people may say, well, why don't you just bring 25,000? That's the case, as comparable to numbers. But sometimes the question is a matter of, because these people that's coming is not looking like you. So when you have these kind of intricacies that's in these communities and people's not at the table from day one, you have these kind of problems. Because one particular community that's just being gentrified is East New York. And I know some of that platform have went from the whole thing from high rise doing Bloomberg, started from Bloomberg administration, from picking in Pennsylvania all the way down to the conduit and all the way across to the junction. And sometimes people think when they see bike racks, tree lining, paved sidewalks here and there, and that's things they bring in for the community. And I understand that may be something in the rim of what's going on, but what really rights and what type of leverage do people have? Then I just want to check on another note. You mentioned that, yes, I think it was the RFR, whatever that was, where you give people the ability to now rise above in the airspace, but then to make it more affordable for living with the high rise of taxes and those things. What about also the programs and the things for people able to rent out their basements and making their basements more accessible to have also an additional income?
Well, we did change the laws in order to have a pilot program to legalize basements. Now, we know it's not just easy to legalize basements, because we saw what happened during Hurricane Sandy. And we're based on New York City's sort of drainage infrastructure. Many of the flooding that took place kind of came from below, and it really compromised and it made very unsafe conditions. Even quite frankly, recently there were some floodings where we lost lives across the city. And so we have to figure out, how do we do that? But of course, remembering to do it in a way that is also safe, so that we're keeping New Yorkers, from harm based on, their housing situation killing them. And so that is a pilot project, which is slated to begin. But here is the thing about sort of FAR and 421A and development and AMI. So what happens is, a lot of times these developers, right, their bottom line is their bottom line. And they have to be able to do projects that make sense to them. Like, I'm not going to get into sort of where I feel about, housing developers, but these are the circumstances, right? And so whenever it is that we talk about AMI, that's a federal mandate. And so I do believe that it's important for us to go to our federal representatives in order to make sure that we are separating out certain communities like Westchester County and Brooklyn, who is going to skew the numbers from communities like Brownsville and East New York. And then what happens is, in order for us to be, us meaning elected officials, to be able to get deeper affordability levels at the 30% of AMI and below, which is generally around the space that people in Brownsville and East New York can afford and to pay, is that we have to do a higher investment in subsidy in order to help sort of carry the cost of construction and maintenance of the buildings from those developers' standpoint. And so one of the things that we've been able to do as we've been having these sort of housing conversations is that there's a new $650 million in discretionary funding, which is going to go to sort of help out with this housing crisis, and then another $500 million. I sorry, 650 million and 550 million, which is slated to help build another 15,000 new homes on state land, and also to support what you were saying, the accessory dwelling units. And so there is about $600 million is going to go in capital funding statewide in order to support more statewide housing initiatives. And so this budget definitely put its money where its mouth is. Of course, it could have gone a lot further, in my opinion, to protect people to be able to stay where they are. And I would also be continuing to push for deeper affordability levels for communities that need it the most. But as you know, politics is not a spectator sport. And so, having shows like this and, showing up in Albany, letting your representatives hear from you, I think is really the only way that we're going to get the type of response from government that we need.
So just a quick question here. Now, when you was talking about the developers, right? Because I always try to understand how this works. So, okay, so when the developers come into the city here and they want to build buildings and things like that, right? So since we said we need more housing for the people so they have somewhere to move and stuff like that, particularly like you said, affordable housing. And like I'm saying too, build houses so we can get the people out of the shelter. So if a developer wants to come in and build, so the officers like the mayor and people like that, they have to sign off on the developers building these houses and things like that. So why they can't have developers who come in build the houses that you want them to build? So in other words, if you want to build renovate some apartments and stuff like that so we can get the people out of the shelter, why doesn't that happen? Why is the developer comes in and just build what they want to build because they want to make a lot of money with all these big high-rise buildings all over the place, when we need buildings built for the people so they can afford to get into an apartment?
Well, you of course raise an interesting and age-old question, right?
Okay, hold on, Latrice. We got to go to break. I see my break sign. So just hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
Yes. Please tell me why these developers can't build what we want them to build.
Well, I think it just depends. I believe it depends on just where you are, right? There's also different types of building. If a developer comes into the community and they purchase your house, your neighbor's house, and the house next door, now they got these 3 lots that they can put together. They don't have to come to government to say, can I get permission to put this building here? That's called as of right building. Now, if they want to come and they want to have city-owned land, or they want to be able to get some city-owned sort of or state tax credits, then that kind of changes the dynamics a little bit, right? So now it gets the involvement of government, it gets the involvement of your city council member, the community board, the ULERT process, and they make recommendations to the borough president to be able to say, this is a project that we support, and this is a project that we don't support. And a lot of times it's like smoke and mirrors. Of course, when they come in, we want to see more people from our community who are working on these projects. And we want the people who are working on the projects to be able to afford to live in them. And we want the people who have been in the community for so many years to be able to enjoy the luxuries now of having this new and amazing development, which is coming into the community. And what happens is there are certain numbers that folk are able to get in terms of affordability in order to make the project go. In the middle of this, you have to go to HPD. HPD has, goes through their calculations about what makes this project work, what makes it affordable, how many vouchers we're going to give, how much funding is, I think the Housing Development Corporation, which provides financing to it, how much money are they going to be able to give? And then a lot of times when they try to go into the conventional banks are not lending money anymore the way that they used to. So a lot of times these guys got to go on to the a different market, and they're getting these loans, which are like, interest rates at 12 and 13%. And so the sort of inner workings of trying to put these deals together in order to get the money to build in the first place is already hurting us as a community, because the interest rate that these developers have to pay is so high, particularly the affordable housing developers, right? Many times those are nonprofit organizations, or people who may not necessarily be making a whole lot of money on building a development within our community. And so once that happens, of course, once that happens, elected officials will start to do whatever kind of jockeying that they can in order to push for deeper affordability, like we do, and also to push for mandates around local hiring initiatives. Now, again, we can always talk about money in politics, right? Where, who does the real estate industry support? Where are their resources going to? And then you can see who are the pro-developer folk and who are not pro-developer. And so that also comes into it a lot. So a lot of times, I'm always about kind of knowing the facts, understanding the circumstances that we're in, and being able to make a learned, decision about, what it is, how do we move forward? I'm a Zeta, and my forever grant says that, the best Zeta is an educated and a learned and informed Zeta. And so, this is, and so a lot of times when you get into this, you really have to figure out which is the best way, the best path forward. But I will always move for deeper affordability, more housing vouchers. I represent over 27 NYCHA developments. I was glad to be able to get $140 million for capital improvements for people who are living in NYCHA developments. But this is always, our fight. And I think that, people in communities like Brownsville, Eastern York, Bedside, Crown Heights, Cypress Hills, Bushwick, we just always have to band together to speak in a unified voice about deeper affordability levels.
Now, we have spoken about we spoke about the developers. How about what can we do to get the rent lowered on regular housing, not the luxury buildings, just people who want to rent out their house, and providing not just more vouchers, but an amount where it's sufficient for the landlord, because a lot of the landlords don't even want to deal with vouchers because they say it's not enough.
Well, that was one of the questions that we were trying to figure out now, right? And so in terms of one of the changes that we made, when people talk a lot about good cause legislation, if a landlord now, and I'm not, saying what, I don't want to get into whether or not, you like it, you don't like it, but what we are right now is, if a landlord wants to charge a higher amount of money on rent, they cannot charge more than I believe it's 5% plus CPI, and that's what the capital consumer price index. And the highest that they can go is about 10%. So let's say, for instance, if you were already paying $1,000 a month for rent, and say 5% plus CPI will go up as high as 10%. So let's say at 10%. Now the landlord can't afford to make your increase any higher than a landlord is not allowed to increase your rent any higher than $100, as opposed to how it was sort of on an open market where people were just kind of willy-nilly doing however, and they were charging pretty much people whatever it was that they wanted to. In addition, however, there's certain changes that also made. If a landlord needs to have this unit for their family member or for themselves, then they can, opt out of, not offering a person a lease at that particular rate. If that person was a nuisance, if there was, other circumstances regarding non-payment, there's a whole list of things that folk are no longer. So it's like you must give them a lease, but this list of things that you can always go to court for in order to evict someone if that's what you choose.
Latrice, I want to interject right now because we almost out of time, but I do want to hit on this crisis of the gun violence in the city right now, about getting this under control and trying. I don't think we'll ever get the guns off the street. I don't think that'll happen. But because everything is so out of control right now, some of the laws, to me, needs to be, changed a little bit. So this way it justifies what's happening with people committing these crimes now. And then a lot of them commit crimes and then they right back on the street again. But I was listening to Adrienne Adams speaking, and she was saying that, they weren't going to change any laws because they've been in effect for over 50 years or whatever. And I'm saying, okay, well, that was 50 years ago, but, things are different now. So the law should change to, coincide with what's going on now. And the city is just, to me, out of control. I mean,
well, I will say this. I mean, I know we've had this conversation on criminal justice reform many times. And whenever it is that someone commits a shooting, there is no law under the sun, whether it is New York or anywhere in the country, that says that if you shoot someone, that you can't be held for bail, or you shouldn't be in pretrial detention. And 9 times out of 10, if there is a trial that takes place, people who are arrested for shooting or murdering someone spends time in prison, right? And so there's always this conversation about what media sensationalizes from whatever the circumstances are the facts. The fact of the matter remains is that crime is going down across our city. That is irrefutable. Crime is going down in our subway systems. That is irrefutable. The numbers do not lie. Yes, does crime happen in the subway system? Yes. For every 1 million rides, there's one crime. But you would never know that based on the things that we see. But you know what? Notwithstanding, shootings are still taking place. And so one of the things that we did was about $347 million to continue, New York State's efforts to end gun violence, which includes things like supporting cure violence groups and cure violence organizations that are out doing violence interruption tactics across the city. We're also investing resources in mental health and mental health crises, because a lot of times what we were really seeing, right, was, and everyone knew this, people were being arrested and they're being, let back out into the street. And most of those people were homeless. And a lot of times people were saying that Rikers Island was not necessarily a place where criminals were, even though a lot of criminals are there, but the recycling of folk were people who have mental health issues, as opposed to people who were committing some of these serious and major crimes. And we need to do something about mental health in our city, and we can no longer just have Uncle Bubba be in the back room and not doing anything about it, and have folks just be like, okay, yeah, you know, he's special. We gotta really be able to provide the resources that we need for people to get the help that they deserve. And so we are increasing mental health beds across our city, so that Rikers Island doesn't become a de facto mental health, institution. And then they've also increased retail theft crimes and the statutes on that, where they put $35 million in order to address retail crimes within our city. And then also we did $7.1 million to reduce recidivism, as well as improve reentry and a reentry workforce within our city and within our state. So we want to also provide people with opportunities, because once they come out of prison, they were in there for stealing, chicken wings, excuse me. When they come out, if you don't have an opportunity to, give this person a job, a stable place to live, what they're going to do is they're going to go right back into, trying to figure out how do they get their next meal. And so these are the investments that we've made. I support them, and I'd love to be able to come back and talk to you more about some of the other initiatives that we have.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we hope you will come back so we can talk some more about what's going on in the city now. We thank you so much for taking the time to come on tonight. And we thank y'all for joining us tonight. And I hope you got something out of this conversation, but it takes all of us. I guess we all going to have to just get out there and do something to help get things under control in the city. Because, I mean, even though I know you saying crime is down, this is down and everything, but you just hear so much that's going on until it just not seem like that it's coming down, like you say, it's coming down.
Because we are in a political war. And politics like to infiltrate crime. And remember, crime is symbolism for our beautiful brown skin.
Right.
And we just got to call things for what they are. Yeah. How much of this is a political conversation, driving up crime, getting us all scared? Yes, we need people who are stronger. We need to lock these people up, and we need to throw away the key. When what we need to do is, instead of telling everybody no, to give them something to say yes to. I have a advisory board meeting every third Saturday in my district office located at 400 Rockaway Avenue, and we're also virtual. And so I'd love to be able to continue this conversation as well in that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
we gotta
you,
go. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Would you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Faith Art Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shannon.